Welcome to If These Pages Could Talk. Today we are talking about stories that stick with you, comic books, video games, and more. I am your host, Kiersten Marcil, author and adventure into history. I am here with my co-host.
Savannah Storm, romance author. No history here.
That's okay. And we are bringing you another guest from around the world. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Berget, author of Let's Sleep the Beasts, which is hopefully coming out soon. Soon. It's in the works. Yeah.
Awesome. We're so glad you're here. And I'm going to say, we were chatting a little bit off camera, but I'm going to say it now again too. I love your setup.
Thank you.
So
we've been working hard on it, and me and my partner have matching battle stations because we play a lot of games together. And also my PC, which is out of frame for camera related reasons, is actually a dollhouse. It's really cool.
that is so awesome. I love it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you've got lights and the headset and the gamer chair, and you're like ready to go.
Yeah, this is a gaming household.
How fun that you guys play together too. Well, let's start off with our usual, because I love doing this. We have so many authors from around the world. What country are you coming from?
I'm from Norway.
And Sev, in case people haven't seen us before.
South Africa.
And I am from the East Coast of the United States. So, Suzanne, what time of day?
Whoa.
What?
You don't get to, now you're being specific. East Coast of the, why can't you just say United States? We said South Africa and Norway.
All right, fine. Where are you from in South Africa, Sav?
I am about 10, 20 kilometers south of Pretoria, which is the capital. So it's in Gauteng. Gauteng.
Yeah. Gauteng
province, yes.
Okay. See, my husband knows all that because he's been there, and I told him where you're from, and he's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Suzanne, do you want to be specific, or do you want a pomegranate?
No, I can be specific. I'm currently in Oslo, the capital of Norway. And Norway is not the capital of Sweden. Some people tend to believe that, but we're our own separate countries. So I'm in Oslo.
Wow. Yeah, I always get like South Africa is like South America. And I'm like, no, it's a country and a continent.
Yeah.
Completely.
It's not a whole.
Oh my God. What time of day is it there?
Here in Oslo?
Yeah.
It's 5 p.m.-ish, which is why I'm drinking wine. Because that's allowed.
Yeah, it's still 11 a.m. here, so I'm still on the coffee.
Yeah.
How about you, Sev?
It's 5 p.m.-ish, and I have got, I think we call it aangemaakte. Actually, it's finished. That's depressing. Aangemaakte, it's concentrated juice. That's what I'm drinking. But
cool.
by diabetic, so there's got no sugar in it.
Oh, all right. I was gonna say you're like the opposite of me. I water down all my juice with seltzer.
Same. Yeah, I do it with water or salsa, but we don't call it salsa. We call it soda water. But yeah, I water it down when I feel like it.
Okay.
I do have a Coke. Right? Yeah. Because it's Saturday, and Saturday is Dungeons and Dragons Day, which means it's snack day. They're all over there playing. So I get a snack, and my snack is Coke Zero.
Subsequent son was telling me he just got asked to do a campaign, so he's gearing up for campaign on Monday.
That's good.
Yeah. Do you play, Suzanne?
Not really. Like, I want to.
Really?
But yeah, I love stuff like that. But we've had some. Okay, so the guy who usually is our DM is sort of really invested in world building and like making maps and like places and races and languages and stuff like that. He's not so into making a story. So our sessions are usually we make a character, we do some dumb stuff because we don't have any like paths to follow or like quests, and we end up like murder hobos. So we just like murder everyone we meet because there's no incentive to do anything else. And then next session he'll figure it out, like he's come up with a new world and a new setting and a new time and everything. So we usually just get through like one session and then it's something else. So we haven't gotten into like the storytelling part of it.
I tried once. I tried to play it once. And I had an argument with a guy because I didn't throw very well on the dice, and that was it for me because there is no reload from save game. So I was
No.
like, this is bullshit. I'm not playing this game. So they can play and I'll sit here. Thank you very much.
What do you guys like to play? Like what's a favorite game for you?
Like play with my partner or just in general?
In general. Or with your partner.
Yeah, so me and my partner play a lot of Destiny 2.
Okay.
Which is like it's a multiplayer first-person shooter type game where you shoot a lot and you loot a lot, and it's all about like getting the coolest gear so you can look cool for the other players. And then there's this story which is just, it's evolved into something that's so incomprehensible that there's a guy on YouTube who has done like a rundown of the story so far, just like a summary of everything that's happened in the game so far.
Yeah.
And the video is like 4 hours long.
Wow.
And that's before like the newest season and the newest stuff. So I try to pay attention, but then I don't. And I just run around and shoot stuff and have a good time.
No, we play play Guild Wars 2. That's what we play.
What's that one?
It's also online. It's an RPG, so it's got so much to do. You could do story, you can do the story, or you can do mapping, or you can do dungeons, or you can do world versus world, or player versus player, or fractals or dungeons. There's like a whole range of things. And I bought I was going to say useful husband. I've only got one. I bought husband the expansion for his birthday, which was 2 weeks ago. So now we're fishing because the expansion comes with fishing. It is. I was like, when I first heard, I was like, this is bullshit. I don't fish. I hate fishing. But now you see me going. Because it's just so relaxing. Like, fish, you know? And then you got different boats and stuff like that. But I've always had a lucky account. So, in other words, when I don't know, when the great gods roll the dice, I'm the one who gets the precursor to a legendary that drops from a monster. And I apparently got one of these rare drops for a boat, because now there's boats that you can ride. Yeah, so he was like, when did you get that? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know when I got it, but I got it. So he's not very happy with me at this point. So that's what we play. But I mean, our whole marriage started off playing Diablo.
Nice.
We played Diablo together, and then my husband modded it so that I could do bail runs and get extra loot, you know, and I chased down all the legendary items. Yeah, that's how our marriage started. Yeah, we played Witcher together and Mass Effect and Age and all of that. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what started me off on writing, because I realized I wasted 3,600 hours of my life, which is currently now 5,400, by the way. It's just gone up. And that's how I started writing, to have something to show for it.
Oh, funny.
But I love that you play it together, Suzanne. That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's sort of how our marriage started as well. We started off on Borderlands, which is a pretty cool like couch co-op where you can sit next to each other in the couch and play together on one screen. Yeah. So it started out like that, and then we just sort of continued playing stuff together. Even single player games will just be like on the couch. Right now we're playing Jedi Survivor, which is the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. And we're just like passing the controller back and forth each time we either hit a save point or one of us dies. So it's a lot of fun.
It's awesome. Does your gaming, because that is part of what you do, right? For a living?
Yeah.
Very cool. So well, why don't you tell us then, what is a game journalist?
It's it can be a lot of things, but for most people, it's just people who play games and then review them, usually in like written long form. But there's a lot of people who do it like for video essays and stuff like that. But I've always been like a writing type journalist. So we get to play games before anyone else, and then we just write what we think about them. It's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well, let's get to the next part and then we'll come back because I want to ask this question together. And
yeah.
you sell comic books as well.
Yeah.
That's
I'm sort of head of the comic book manga department at one of the biggest bookstores in Oslo. And I've been working like in different bookstores all my life, basically. This is the fourth one I'm in, I think, like
wow.
total. And the previous bookstore is it's a chain of bookstores called Outland, which specializes in fantasy and science fiction and comic books. So I sort of started out there properly, and then it's just sort of snowballed.
Wow. Okay. So then how did you get into game journalism?
Uh, sort of by accident.
Okay.
So I've been playing video games since I was seven-ish. Whenever my dad and I would get together on weekends and vacations and stuff, we would go to the local video store, like a Blockbuster when they still existed, and then we would rent like a console, usually the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment
Yeah.
one, the old one, and then we would spend the weekends like playing Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
And then I sort of just continued playing stuff with my siblings and with my stepdad and with boyfriends. And then I really didn't have that many friends who played video games because back then it was still viewed as sort of a thing that only guys do.
Mm.
Uh, so when I started studying, I sort of fell into a crowd of people who like to play video games as well. And there was this particular study I was doing at a sort of swanky school with tuition, which is unusual in Norway. All our education is free.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so I was going there, and then one of my classmates just casually mentioned he was working for this magazine called Game Reactor, and that he was reviewing games for them. And I just sort of sidled up to him and was like, "So tell me more about this."
Yeah.
And then we just talked a bunch about games, and then he was like, "Hey, do you want me to ask my editor if we need more people?" And I was like, "Fuck yes."
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then he did, and then I got invited to sort of a summer party, just hanging out with the editorial staff. And then, like a week after, the editor-in-chief called me and was like, "Hey, do you want to go to London to cover this game that's coming out soon?" And I was like, "I don't know what that entails at all, but sure." I
Ah,
mean, how hard can it be?
yeah.
Yeah. So that sort of started, like I've been doing it for 11 years now, but that was the start of it.
That's amazing. Oh my
It is
gosh.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Were
It's
you nervous?
oh, I was so nervous. Like I went there alone. And this was my first time doing anything like that, and it was in London, and I was like, I don't know anyone. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what's like questions I'm supposed to ask. And then when we had sort of a hands-on uh playthrough of the game, it was some sort of Sonic racing game. I can't remember. I think I broke the game on like three different consoles. And I was just like, I'm sorry. But then I wrote an article, and then they liked it, and then I sort of just continued getting stuff to do. Yeah. So after like 5 years, I think, I was tapped to become the next editor-in-chief, which I accepted because it's a really cool job. Like, it was my dream job at the time.
Yeah.
So in 2017, I think, I became like the first female editor-in-chief in Norway of a video game like website magazine.
Congratulations. That's
Fantastic.
amazing.
First and only.
Oh, gotta work on that only, but wow, that's great.
Yeah. And I tried to work on that only bit while I was editor-in-chief. Like,
Yeah.
I was so like hyped that now I could change like the status quo and bring in more women and like bring in more diversity to the staff.
Yeah.
And out of like the hundreds of applications we got, only 3 were from women, which was like, it was an eye-opener and kind of disappointing, but I ended up hiring 2 of them, and then one of them ended up taking over for me as editor-in-chief when I quit. So that's
Yeah.
good. And the other
Good.
one ended up working for Funcom, which is one of the largest video game like developers and publishers here in Norway. So that's I'm pretty stoked about that.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Wow. Um, okay. So what did you read as a child?
It was a lot of stuff. Like,
Okay.
I think my earliest memory is reading Elfquest by the Peonies. They're a married couple that makes this comic book called Elfquest, and it absolutely blew my tiny little mind. I didn't understand like all of the dialogue and everything, but the pictures were beautiful, and it was just like so compelling. And then it sort of started me on my path into like more comic books, but also fantasy and science fiction. So I went from that, and then I started reading like the Narnia books by C.S. Lewis and the Animorphs books by K.A. Applegate, which are
Yeah.
insane. Like, children should not be reading those books.
That's
They
what
are,
my boys said.
yeah,
Yeah.
they are traumatizing,
Oh my
but
God.
so great. And then sort of R.L. Stein, obviously, because the Goosebumps books were huge in Norway at the time. And then I went from that to sort of Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, Harry Potter, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. And then just sort of snowballed.
Wow.
Mm.
How much of your gaming experience or selling comic books, if at all, does it influence your book?
It's definitely influenced by a lot of comic books, like mostly X-Men.
Okay.
Because I love how absolutely bonkers the X-Men lore is in the universe. Like, there are no bars hold at all in those stories. They just do whatever they want, and it's just like there are alternate timelines, different dimensions, clones and robots and evil twins. It's like very sort of telenovela-ish,
Okay.
only sci-fi. And I love that. And it also has like a host of very compelling characters. And it's also X-Men has also always been used as a sort of analogy for being different, and how hard that can be and how rewarding it is, like finding your people.
Yeah.
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 So my book there's a lot of X-Men in there. And I realized just how much when I rewatched the movies, and I was like, ah, okay, that's where I have that thing from. Okay, I see. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of comic book like logic and sort of storytelling. Same with like video games. I've feel like I follow a sort of video game logic and video game structure in my story, but it's going to be more evident in the second book, I think. That's going to be less X-Men, I think, and more Resident Evil. Yeah.
Very cool.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Let me just ask permission first. How did Champagne Book Group find you?
Well, I found them. Like I was submitting my book, like I had like a list of agents and like small press publishers, and then I sort of stumbled onto Champagne Book Group, and then I read their submission guidelines, and I was like, this might be a fit. I don't know, because the CBG's roster or backlog or catalog is like mostly romance, and I'm like, hello, would you like my sci-fi story, please? So I sent it in, and I didn't like really I didn't really think much about it after. It was like just sent and done, and then I didn't think about it until I got like a full request, and I was like, what? You want to read more of this? Are you sure? So I was very surprised, but it's yeah, it's great. It's really fun having found a place for this weird story.
Like the X-Men.
Yeah.
Finding your place, yes.
Yes.
Is English your native tongue?
No, I speak Norwegian, but most Norwegians learn English in like the 4th grade, and then we pick a third language in like the 8th grade. So most Norwegians are trilingual.
Oh, do you speak a third language?
Yeah, I speak German, but very poorly. Like I can read it pretty well, but if I'm gonna have to like think of the grammar and put a sentence together like on the fly, it's not gonna happen. I can do very, very basic stuff, like answer the simplest questions, but no more than that. So I'm really, really rusty. But in a pinch, I know German.
That's amazing.
I studied German for 2 years, and all I can remember is Ich verstehe nicht, Fräulein Berner.
Yeah, well, what more do you need?
Our teacher was Fräulein Berner, so Miss Berner.
Yeah.
And all I knew was I do not understand.
Okay.
Ich
Okay.
verstehe nicht.
Yeah, I have no German. I have no German, which was funny because when I worked for a museum, I portrayed a German immigrant who was a real person from the 1852 census. And I knew just enough to get the kids to understand that I was not supposed to be English, and I had a couple words, but oh my gosh, very cool. I lost my train of thoughts. Tell us about your book, Let's Slip the Beast.
Yeah, okay, so this is my least favorite question, just because
because she's Norwegian.
Yeah, and also my mind just goes blank. It's just like, I've never written a book. I don't know what it's about. And it's the same thing when I'm at work and people ask me for a recommendation, either about like fantasy or science fiction or comic books. And like, I read a lot, but as soon as somebody asks me for a recommendation, I'm like, ma'am, I haven't read a book in 100 years. I don't know anything. I don't even know how to read, I'm sure of it. But yeah, so my book is, in short, about a bunch of like a ragtag group of escaped sort of genetic experiments that are plotting revenge against their creators. And then I have a main character that sort of stumbles into this group of ragtag experiments and sort of becomes a part of their plan to get revenge. which is like the short version of it. Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome.
And where did you get the
I-
idea from? From
Yeah.
X-Men.
Yeah, pretty much, I think. Reading a lot of comic books and then just letting it percolate and then having some weird dreams and waking up being like, that's a good story. I should write that down. And then you don't write that down for like 17 years. Uh, and then you do, and it turns out to be kind of cool, I guess.
What
But yeah,
finally, sorry. Because you
No.
have that on your website in your bio that, and I'm going to quote you here. It's a story that's been with her for as long as she can remember.
Yeah.
What is it that finally got you over that hump to say, you know what, I'm going to sit down and write this thing?
That's a good question.
COVID?
Yeah, no, I started on it like I think I started writing it like when I was 17, like the very first iteration of it, but it was really, really bad. Like I think I committed every writing sin there is. Like waking up from a dream sequence, describing your main character while she's looking at herself in the mirror. All of that was in there. And then I sort of put it aside because life kind of got in the way, and then I've sort of just returned to it like at intervals. But I think what got me over the hump, so to speak, was seeing people I had gone to school with having their books published, and reading them and being like, okay, if they can do it, why can't I? And then I sort of sat down and finished the whole thing and sent it out to like beta readers, had feedback. But in the first sort of few iterations, I listened to all the feedback and changed everything. So what I was left with was like a garbled mess of nothing, really. So a few years after that, I just sat down and then I rewrote the whole thing. And that's that's the story I sent to CBG, among others. So it's been through like a lot of changes, and it's still going through a lot of changes, I feel, in the editing process. But yeah, I think it was just like getting that kick in the ass by seeing classmates who are younger than me being published and sort of doing it out of spite. Which is pretty much why and how I do everything. It's through spite.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of what got me started too, was just I had some academic stuff published, but I'm like, if that book can get published, I can get somewhere too. So yeah. Did you originally write it in I'm blank Norwegian?
Norwegian, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, I started it in English and I've written in English the entire time.
Okay.
Mostly because like all of the comic books and all of the fantasy and science fiction I read are in English. So my vocabulary was already geared toward English. There's not a lot of comic books and science fiction and fantasy that gets translated into Norwegian because like most things in publishing, there's not a lot of money in it.
Okay.
Yeah, because Norwegians tend to want to read it in the original language, unless they're kids or like young adults. Then the translated versions have a tendency to do okay, but not really super well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, because I did want to ask you a little bit about that because you worked on the Dragonball Project.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is when I worked for Outland, the fantasy and science fiction bookstore, and they had sort of scored a deal with Shueisha, which is the Japanese publisher of Dragon Ball, to secure the rights to translate it. And I was originally brought in as a translator because that's my academic background. I'm a technical translator. so the boss sort of called me up and was like, "Hey, you're a translator, right? You think you can translate Dragon Ball?" And I was like, I picked up a volume of the English version, sort of leafed through it, and I was like, yeah, I can do this, no problem. It's gonna take like X amount of time, and I want X amount of money. Due to some sort of communication error or what have you, the files I received from Shueisha were not in English, they were in Japanese.
Oh
Oh,
my word.
And they were all sort of, all the pages were just like scanned from the original Japanese Dragon Ball, so they were like flat, so I couldn't copy out the text to sort of figure out what it said. So I was like, okay, so we have to have somebody who actually knows Japanese on board. And then I found someone, and I was like, okay, so we need someone to sort of typeset the whole thing. Somebody has to erase the old text and put in the new text. So I hired someone to do that. And I was like, okay, we're gonna need someone to proofread this. And then I had to find someone to do that. And after like a few weeks, a few months, I was suddenly editor-in-chief of the whole project and had basically no idea what I was doing. I was like learning on the job. And there were just like so many weird things that I had to learn. Like I had to teach myself InDesign to put the whole thing together because it has to be put together in a like a particular way because in Japan they read the opposite way of us.
right,
And
right.
we were sort of, we wanted to maintain that in the Norwegian edition. But to do that, you have to have like a proper version of InDesign, or you have to be like, your computer has to be situated in either Japan or somewhere it, on the Arab Peninsula. And I was not there, and I was not Japanese, and I couldn't just like purchase a Japanese InDesign because it doesn't work like that. So I had to sort of, I did a lot of Googling and found like a snippet of code that I had to paste into the source code of InDesign to trick it to believe it was like in Japan so that I could have my pages in the right order when I sent it to like the publisher or the print. And then I had to teach myself how to make a cover because we didn't have people for that. And I was also the liaison to the Shueisha and had to make sure they were happy with everything we did. And it was just, um, it was such a weird time. And I spent like 9 months working like 14, 15-hour days just to get everything done.
Yeah.
And then we finished the first volume. We sent it to the printers. We received the finished product, and then they sort of figured out that they wanted to move the entire project to Bergen, which is one of the other cities here in Norway, where most of the other editorial staff were situated. So I was let go as editor-in-chief and sort of returned to my regular job, and then they sort of made a publishing house out of the work we've been doing so far. So now they've published all of Dragon Ball in Norwegian. They also gotten the rights to My Hero Academia, and they've just recently published the very first volume of One Piece in Norwegian, which is really cool. So they've done an excellent job. Just based on that crazy first 9 months.
Go you.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So you really laid the foundation for all that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, um, a lot of weird stuff. Yeah.
Are you still using those skills that you learned? Like, where else are you applying it in your life, if at all?
The skills I learned as at the Dragon Ball thing.
Yeah, as editor-in-chief.
Yeah. Well, I'm editor-in-chief now of it's sort of an indie website for gaming related stuff. that we created after I quit Game Reactor.
Mhm.
So we're 4 people running our stupid little websites, writing our stupid little reviews, and basically just having fun with it, because doing it in like properly for a corporate website with bosses and advertising and money and all of that got really tiresome. Like
Mm. Mhm.
there was just too much to do, too little time, and too little money in it.
Yeah.
So now we're sort of just doing things in our own tempo, in our own way, not making any money at all, but we don't have any, like, nobody expects anything from us, so we can just do whatever we want. But sometimes I utilize those skills to do like guest lectures.
Yeah.
So I have a series of like guest lectures at the University of Oslo and Høgskolen Kristiania, which is the school I went to when I accidentally fell into video game journalism.
Yeah.
So only like if I do the guest lecture like 17 more times, I will earn back my tuition. So I'm hoping and fingers crossed that I get to continue to do it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, fingers crossed for you. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Um, wow. So there's so much I want to ask you. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, let me ask you one more thing. We'll get back to your book because I want to make
Yeah.
sure we talk a lot about your book. Who does the art on your website?
Like the placeholder cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the website is sort of made by me, just like WordPress templates and goofing around and having fun with it. But my placeholder cover is made by a friend of mine who's also a very skilled tattoo artist. So she's made like a mock-up cover that I'm hoping I get to use, but I haven't heard anything definitive yet, so
Yeah.
we'll see. Yeah,
Who is your editor?
Debbie.
Okay, Debbie's your editor, and you
Yeah,
sent your cover to Cassie.
yeah.
All right, because she asked me a strange question. She said, Sev, how's it going with the cover? And I was like, what?
Yeah, because there's been a lot of sort of weird back and forth. So I'm not sure where anything is at the moment. But I like one of the very first things I asked Cassie when she offered me the contract was, can I get to use my own cover? And then I sent it to her, and she was like, I don't like the background color, and the eyes are creepy. And I was like, yeah, but I can background colors, font, text, whatever, I can change all of that, but like the central image isn't possible to sort of incorporate that or something. And she said that was something we could discuss at a later date. But then I haven't heard anything, and I also don't have like a fixed release date yet. It was
Yeah.
supposed to be last Monday, I think.
Mm.
And then it got postponed, so now
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. Publishing is so hard. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter where you go or what you
I've
do. There's always
Cassie's got you
something.
down for the 31st of May.
Yeah. But I haven't received a galley yet.
Yeah, she says formatting galley.
Yeah.
Says, yeah, notes. But she says your cover is done. Cover
Y- y-
art form completed.
Yeah.
I'm reading the schedule now. Yeah, that's what it
This is a
says here.
good behind the scenes peek for everybody.
Yeah.
What happens in a
Yeah.
publishing house?
So I like there's just like so much that's out of my control.
Yeah,
And
you
it's
really have to learn
yeah,
to let go. It's hard.
it's
Yeah.
frustrating. Like
Yeah.
oh, just tell me what I can do to sort of fix things and make things go faster, but there's nothing. Like I just have to wait, and then sort of with the next book just do a better job, I guess, with the
No,
editing and
that's
the
no, that's
yeah.
not you.
It's a work
There's
in
nothing.
progress.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just reply to Cassie on her question about your book.
Yeah, please do.
I see, because she's got my name against it. So that means
Yeah.
it's coming to me. I get most of the sci-fi and the fantasy book covers to do. So I'm just trying to find where she.
Oh, you're in good hands then, Suzanne. The two of you can talk and figure that out.
Yeah,
That
we
would
can do
be
that
cool.
after. Yeah.
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 No, you're in
Carry
good
on,
hands.
carry on.
Yeah.
You're in good hands.
Yeah,
All right,
but
so
so the art on my website is made by a very talented tattoo artist. You can find her on Instagram at Blodsmare. Yeah.
maybe you can email that to me and I'll put it
Yeah.
down below for people.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's done a lot of my tattoos as well, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Because the image she has of you on your website is fantastic. I just love that. Well, I like all of it.
The portrait.
Yeah.
That's done by somebody else. So
Oh,
I
it
have
is.
like
Oh.
I have two people doing like artwork for me. But yeah, the portrait is also done by a friend, sort of an internet friend, I'd say,
Okay.
who also does like cool stuff. And she's made all the portraits for our headshots over at Spillbart as well. So I use it for like all of my socials.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so getting back to your book, because we do need to talk about your book.
Yeah. Do we though? Let's just
We do. We want people to read your book.
yeah, but
so...
do I don't know. Yeah, of course I wanted to read it, but
well, all right, well, let's start with this, because you said it took you a while to, how long from the time you said, I am going to do this now, to where you are? Like, how much time is that for you?
I think it's nearing on 3 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've done it like in increments or like installments. Like I finished the book and then I started querying. Is it
querying? That's
querying?
what I say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then I didn't like. I only got rejections, and I was like, okay, so let's me take another look at the manuscript, have some more eyes on it, and then I sort of rewrote parts of it and sent it out again, and then I did that like one more time, and then CBG offered me a contract.
Yay.
Yeah, so I definitely started querying too early, I think, but I was sort of tired of not doing anything. So I was like, yeah, okay, I wrote it. It's done. Let's send it out into the world. It's probably good. And then it wasn't.
You just don't know with your first book until you start getting that extra kind of feedback. So now that you're on the other side of having written it, gotten it out the door, do you wish you had started sooner? Like, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I definitely like regret all of the procrastination. Like I'm a master procrastinator. It's wild what I'll do to avoid writing. So yeah, now looking back at it, I wished I was more focused, more disciplined, just taking it more seriously and not having like all of these doubts and like imposter syndrome and all of that stuff. That sort of little voice in your head that's telling you nobody's ever gonna read this. Why keep doing it?
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely something I'm gonna take with me when I continue writing, just like trying to shut that voice out and just making time for myself to do nothing but write. Like, here's 3 hours, you better write at least 500 words. Something like that, yeah. And maybe I'll award myself a little treat if I do it.
Okay. So then do you fit in writing where you can?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I have a lot of time to actually do it because I only work like 60% at my day job. So I have like full days off, where I can just sit down and do it. But like I said, I'm a master procrastinator. So usually I'm
Yeah.
like, I just gotta tidy up a little bit first, or I have to go work out, or
Yeah.
I have to play this video game for 8 hours straight for reasons, work. Yes. So I could definitely do more with the time I have, but I'm just like, I'm so easily distracted. It's terrible.
That sounds universal though. I know so many of us just you want to
Yeah,
write,
some
but
of
then
us
all the
take sabbatical and then wonder why they didn't write during sabbatical.
Oh no.
you know why? Because I felt like all the business aspects, like I was on sabbatical, Suzanne, for 8 months. And
Mm,
so all the business stuff that I had to do, because I'm president of the board of something called Authors Congress, we talk with authors, right, about the Revolutionary War.
mm.
All of that, our big event was April. So I had to read everybody's books, do all that, the business stuff relating to my book, everything. Like I did that during the day. I did this show and prepping for it during the day. And I kept to that schedule that I had when I was working full time of not writing until evening. Because I thought it would be too easy. If I were just to spend my days doing nothing but writing, yeah, I'd have my second book done like months earlier, but then
Yeah.
all the other stuff didn't get done. So
Yeah, but
it's
you can pat your
amazing.
back now because you submitted your second book.
I did. I did.
Yeah, you did like yesterday, the day before?
Yeah, what, Thursday, I think maybe.
Yeah.
I finally, because I had hoped to have that done in January, and I was rewriting it, like a complete rewrite of the language, and that's hard because everybody in my book are real people from history. So I was
Oh, okay, yeah.
reading, right. So one of my main characters is an immigrant from Poland who spoke nothing but Polish and French. He had very little English. So I was pouring through his letters to make sure that my language that I was putting in his mouth in my book was consistent with where the real person was. Like I got that anal about it. So yeah. But where are you with your second book then?
I think I'm sort of halfway, but it's
Okay.
halfway in the very first draft, so it's all like it's bare bones. Like I'm just going from, okay, here are the things that I want to happen. How do I get there? I don't know. I just put some stuff in brackets and figure it out later. So it's very bare bones and it's very fast paced. Because I like skip from one thing to the next. But I think I'm about halfway.
That's great.
Yeah,
Because
but I haven't like wanted to write too much on it in case I have to retcon a bunch of
yes.
stuff
Yes. Yeah.
due to changes in the first one. So I've sort of put it on ice. But
Mhm.
while I've been waiting, I've started a whole entire another project. But it's in Norwegian. And it feels so weird writing in Norwegian after having just written in English. So I feel like my grammar is terrible. The dialogue is like all over the place, and but it's fun, like doing something completely different. I feel like I'm learning a lot from it.
Wow, that's cool.
Mm.
Oh my gosh.
I wouldn't
That
be able
makes
to write in another language. I can't even read like we're Afrikaans, so Afrikaans, English, and what's it? 9 other African languages. So I couldn't even write in Afrikaans. I don't even read Afrikaans. So this is no, hats off.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's impressive.
very impressive. Cool. Okay. We're running out of time. So why don't you tell us where to find you online?
Oh God. You can find me on Instagram, and I'm most active on Twitter. I'm also on Hive, and Goodreads, obviously. Gotta get those reviews in and do my little challenges. But yeah, those are, it's mainly Instagram and Twitter is where I'm at.
Cool. And we will, of course, put everybody's website in the description below. So please make sure you check out Suzanne's website and all of her places on social media. It is May 2023 as we are recording this, but keep checking back because once Suzanne's book is released, you're going to want to get your hands on it. Keep
Yes,
tabs
please.
of what she's doing. Yes. And all the other amazing things you do.
Yeah.
It has been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing what you do.
Well,
It's
thanks
just
for
really
having me. It's been really fun.
good. I'm glad.
Just putting like faces to names and actually talking to someone. It's been a lot of emails and a lot of Skype.
Yes. Yeah. Do you find in your job that you are mostly at home or do you meet people face to face?
At my job, I'm mostly like at my workplace. So
Okay.
yeah, so I meet people all the time, but it's
Okay.
customers, and you know how retail is. It's a mixed bag.
Yes. Yeah. We're still with my new job, we're still in a place where most people work from home. And yes, and it's so much fun when you find somebody who's been working at home almost exclusively and they're like, people, somebody
Yeah.
to talk to you. It's so fun. Oh, cool. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Please make sure you like this video, follow us, subscribe, depending on where you are watching, and have a great day.
Bye, everyone.